This video will show you how to analyze a video in LoggerPro. Firstly, we have to insert the video, so go to Insert, Movie, and choose your movie. Mine is on the desktop and called Example Video. In my video, I only have a red car, I don't have a blue car, and thanks to Mika for helping me out. I like to make my window a little bit bigger, so I'm going to expand this out like that. And there's video playback controls down here in this side, so I can hit play, I can stop, I can move forward a frame, I can move back a frame, I can move all the way back to the very beginning. I also want to make sure I go to Options and go Movie Options. It opens this menu. You can do a lot of different things here. What I'd like to do here is actually choose this. First VA point defines movie time 0. That makes it so that the first dot that I click is going to set the time to 0. And you could choose this, you could change this if you wanted to advance it more than one frame after adding a point. If your objects are going very slow, you can always come back and change that to advancing the movie 4, 5, or 10 frames after adding a new point. I'm going to leave it as 1. Okay, now I have to click down here, and this lets me do some analysis. First things first is that I want to set a scale. So setting the scale is with this one right here, and I'm going to choose, click and drag all the way across, and I know that I measured this in class, and this one is actually 1.96 meters. That lets LoggerPro know the distance inside of here, and I would actually like to probably redo that a little bit closer to where the car is, because I think my perspective is a little bit off, but should be fine. Next thing to do is set an origin. That's with this button here. And you can set your origin wherever you want to set it. Might make sense to put it on one car or the other car. I'm going to put mine on this line over here just for lack of anything better to do. Click it like that. You can always move it around a little bit afterwards if you want. This dot right here shows you that that is the positive X direction. I can change my X direction a little bit if I want to angle it a little bit. I'll try to keep mine straight. That's pretty good. Right? Okay, so now I'm actually going to start to add some points. That's with this button up here. Oh, I should also mention if you click this arrow, that just brings you back to the arrow, and that makes it so you're not going to mess anything up. So that might be a good place to go if you're just wandering around looking at things. But I'm going to click this, and this is going to set some data points. I don't really want to start setting data points now until the car is actually moving. So I'm going to come down here, move my movie forward a little bit, maybe find a spot where the car is actually starting to move. Yeah, maybe like there or so. Now I'm going to choose a spot on the car that I can just see again and again. So I'm going to choose that little yellow spot right there. When I click on it, a dot showed up. And it turned out to be a blue dot, and I'm sure there's some way to change the color. Maybe it's this one. Oh, nope, that's not it. Somehow I might be able to change that color to red. And it also advanced the movie forward one frame. So now I'm going to click again on that same spot. Boom. It advanced the frame forward one frame. Click again on that spot, and advance the frame forward, and I'm going to keep doing that again and again. Now this might get a little bit tedious, especially for the blue car, which is going pretty slow. So I might come down here into this corner, skip a couple frames forward, and then click it again, skip a couple frames forward, click it again, skip a couple frames forward, click it again. I should mention that there's no undo button. So if I accidentally go oops, and I click the spot way up here, I either have to deal with it or I have to go back in data and then clear all data down here. That'll get rid of everything. So just be careful. I'm not going to do that now. But if you make a mistake, you either just have to live with it. So I made a mistake up there. I'm just going to deal with it. I'm going to have a weird point in my graph. So I'll move forward a couple frames. If you're real particular, you can move forward the same set number of frames each time, like 1, 2, 3, and then click a point, and then 1, 2, 3, and then click a point. That might make your graph look a little different. 1, 2, 3, click a point. And you're going to keep going until you see fit that you're satisfied. Click a point. 1, 2, 3, click a point, right? And try to be as accurate as possible, but you don't need to spend an hour trying to figure out the exact spot. And like I said, if you make a mistake, you just sort of have to deal with it and live with it. So now we can actually do some things now that we've had some data points added. First of all, if I have another car in here, I can come over to this spot and I can add a point series inside of there. That point series, as you saw over here, it's going to be called x2 and y2. And you can see them here. So I can do point series xy, and I can add some more points to this series, or I can add some points to x2 and y2. It's going to show up in a different color, so maybe I'll pull this back, and I'm going to add some data points, say for this little metal thing on the ground. And there it is, and I click it forward a little bit, and hey, look, it's still in the same place. And I click it forward a little bit, and it's still, oh, it moved a little bit. Oh, that's funny. I click it, and I go, and I click it, and I go. So now I'm adding points to x2 and y2 series. You're going to do it for your buggy and not for the little metal thing on the ground. All right, so now what do we do? Now I'd like to look at this graph back here. So if I click back here, it's going to show me the graph. But then you might say, well, what happened to my video? The video is back there somewhere. So if I want to, I can pull this down and I can click on the video. Oops, see, I set a data point there. So you got to be careful because that's an errant data point. I might want to go back and click this little button here. Now I have a weird data point there. So I can click back and forth between the video and here. Also, if I hit Command R or Control R, that'll resize everything and make it look really, really nice. Right? So there it is. Now you've got some stuff to deal with here. And at this point, I'm going to let you sort of go on your own and try to figure some things out. So you can add some things, you can subtract some things, but notice that you can click in a lot of places. If I click here, I can choose some different things. So I can choose to plot just X, or maybe I could choose to plot Y, or I could choose to plot X2, or I could choose to plot Y2, or X velocity 2, Y velocity 2. I can also come down here to More, and I can select which ones I want to plot. So maybe I want to plot Y for the blue dots and Y for the maroon dots or something. It'll plot them both on the graph. There's my errant points, right? There's my weird points that I just clicked. So we get something here and we get something here. So at this point, your job is, in this assignment, to play around, add some things, subtract some things, but come to class with something reasonable prepared to share with your table mates for how you plotted your points. And then we can do some further analysis. If you're feeling spunky and you want to move on, you're welcome to try to do some curve fits. So I can come up here and in, where are my curve fits? So in this Analyze, I can try to put a curve fit on here if I want to. And there's some options here. Which one am I going to choose? Maybe I'll choose Y, and I can try to fit a curve to here. So you can play around with these if you want. This is just optional to do. But if you're feeling, as I said, if you're feeling spunky and you want to do it, then you always have to hit Try Fit, and then you can hit OK, and you can just do different things. Move this little window around and see what happens, right? So that's just some things you can play with. You can also just always play with some of the edits. You can do some things with the experiments, data, all sorts of different stuff. Try to figure out how to make the dots get connected if you want to. Add in an additional graph if you want to add in a graph. Insert a graph, and you can choose what kind of graph you want to add in. So now I have two graphs here. Hit Control R, it'll resize everything. There's my other graph. So what do I want to plot on this graph? Oh, maybe I want to have this be the X graph, and this graph is the X2 graph, whatever it is that you want to do, or maybe keep them both in the same graph, right? If I click here and hit delete, bye-bye, see you later. So lots of things to play around with. Scaling, if you want to choose some scaling, I can set this scale to something else. The axis direction will be reversed. I have no idea what that means, but yeah, sure. Okay, so I just did something. I don't know what it was, but there you go. And all my data went away. So play around a little bit. You generally aren't going to need to look at this, but if it's interesting to you, then that's totally fine. You can always go back. You can play the video while the data points are being plotted. So if I come back over here and I move this back, then I can hit go here and, oh, that's on the wrong one. Let's do the Y values, I think. Somewhere I thought, oh, because I changed my graph, so sorry about that. But my values could be plotted on here somewhere. So like I said, just play around with it, and your task is to come to class prepared with something to show your table mates, and we can compare and contrast. All right, let me know if you have any questions.